Hello. This speech is kind of hella long, so I'm going to go fast because it's raining. President Bondaroff, distinguished faculty, family, friends, I am honestly thrilled to be here today. I'm still kind of newish to these hills, and I already love them dearly. So it's extra meaningful for me to be included in something like this, and it is a tremendous honor. So thank you. To the graduating class of SUNY Delhi, I say, what's up? Yeah. How y'all doing? It's a big day, right? Great big day. Great big day. You're probably tired of everybody saying that to you. Everybody's been saying that, but I'm sorry, not sorry. It bears repeating. Whether you feel it or not, whether you are aware of it or not, you are sitting here in the rain this morning at an inflection point in your life. It is one of many to come, but this one is right now. And I encourage you to inhale this moment, to really feel it, if you can, because you did a big, hard thing. You did a big, important thing, and you are to be commended, and I commend you and congratulate you. That's it. Bye. No, I'm kidding. Also, I can't decide which one. Oh, I like this one better. Also, hi. I'm Steve Burns, and I've totally been your neighbor for 4 years. You may have seen me around town, maybe at the Price Chopper or something. But if you know me at all, you probably just know me as Steve, with one name and no last name. Like Beyonce. You see, 45 million years ago, I was the original gangster host of a children's television show on Nickelodeon called Blue's Clues. Now, I'm good, great. I'm hoping most of you, 45 million years ago, I was the original gangster host of a children's television show on Blue's Clues. Now, I'm hoping that most of you are familiar with that show. Otherwise, this is just a commencement speech from some dude who you watched buy a pair of socks at Tractor Supply or something. So, but for the uninitiated, Blue's Clues was a really, really kind of weird children's television show wherein I was the only alive human part of an entirely animated world. I wore the same bad outfit all the time and was generally very nice and very excited about absolutely everything. I hung out with an animated puzzle-solving puppy who was blue and also... Blue? And the dog was blue and also named Blue, which is why the show was called Blue's Clues. I had meaningful conversations with my condiments. I sang songs with a bar of soap. And when the mail showed up, dude, I broke out. I went crazy. I sang songs and jumped into the air. But mostly what I did is I looked for clues to mysteries that were painfully obvious to everyone but me. And that's where you came in, my friend. In each and every episode, I would need your help. And so I would stand in front of the camera and look into the lens as if I was looking right at you, my ride or die. And I would ask, will you help me? And you always did, thankfully, because I never would have found any of those clues without you. So before we go any further, sincerely, thanks for all your help. Now, and all that was pretty strange and really cool in about a million ways. And all these years later, and always to my surprise, people still come up to me and tell me how much Blue's Clues meant to them, and they sing its songs to me, and they tell me about their favorite episode. And very often someone will repeat to me a phrase that I said all the time on every episode, and that's, if you use your mind and take a step at a time, you can do anything that you want to do. Now, preschool age children, the target demographic of Blue's Clues, are a very, very, very literal group of people. And that message used to concern me a little. I'll give you an example. One of my favorite pieces of fan mail I ever received read like this: "Dear Steve, I love your show. I want to be a pizza. Love, Brian." And as the years have passed, I've often thought of Brian. Worried that he's lived his life, according to my advice, in pursuit of the dream of actually becoming a piece of pizza. And I wonder if Brian is out there somewhere deeply disappointed, covered in marinara sauce. And I hope that he's not, right? I hope that Brian understood, as I'm sure you have, that that message was never meant to be taken literally. It was meant to be an empowering reminder of the power of hard work, and an empowering reminder of the importance of having a dream. Because we're all expected to have one of those, aren't we? Right? In fact, people tell us to have a dream from a very, very early age. I remember people telling me, asking me what my dream was when I was like in junior high. And it's kind of crazy if you think about it, that we're somehow expected to know exactly what makes us tick, that which will ultimately make us fulfilled and therefore make us happy. Whereas to identify that thing and to make that thing our dream and to then follow it relentlessly. It's absurd when you think about it to define the most sacred aspiration of your life when you're what, like 14, right? But that's what we're asked to do, and that's what I did. So I dreamed a big old dream, and I left college to be a brooding, very serious, definitely pretentious actor in New York City. I wanted to live a life of impenetrable theater and make films that no one would see. That was my dream, and it had absolutely nothing to do with being on children's television. In fact, I was this close to not going to the audition for Blue's Clues. But I did. And I became something that I never dreamt. Oh my gosh. Bro. I became something I didn't even particularly want at the time, to be honest. I became Steve. One name, no last name. Right? And here's a fun fact. I was years old when I got that job. Like, imagine that, right? You graduate college and you go to a party tonight, you wake up tomorrow not feeling too particularly great, and suddenly you are in charge and responsible for educating America's children. Right? So that's what happened. I became an accidental educator. I went to New York to be an actor. And suddenly my job was to use the character of Steve to teach a generation of children about shapes and colors and words and numbers and self-esteem. I was an accidental educator. And all these years later, I'm still surprised by the degree to which I was also an accidental student. See, I learned lots of great stuff on that show. Steve has been a great teacher in my life. He taught me all sorts of great stuff. Like, first, wonder, right? And when I say wonder, I don't just mean curiosity. I'm talking about a very specific kind of wonder, childlike wonder. It's about curiosity, but it's mixed with a sense of awe and a leaning in and a sense of joyful anticipation. It's actually a human superpower, in my opinion. It's what allows us to get beyond the comfort of what we're certain about into the realm of the possibility and the new. Wonder is responsible for all of human progress when you look at it that way. And the great news is you were born with it. We all were. As children, we called it play. In my world, there's a saying, play is the work of childhood. And I believe that that's true. When you were on the playground, what you were doing was work, and what you were having was fun. Because children stand in front of the unknown and instinctively ask it to play. And I encourage you to remember to do that. When you go out into the vast unknown, arm yourself with play. Arm yourself with wonder, because wondering makes you wonderful, which is grammatically correct. Another thing Steve taught me, and this one gets a little woo-woo, but go with me. Listen, right? The sacred art of listening. This one is so important. And I don't just mean listening to the things around you. I mean getting comfortable with silence. And listen for what comes up when you release the noise of your own mind, when the screens are off. Learn to listen deeply to your own world. Learn to listen deeply to your own silence. Because what you will begin to hear is your heart. And that is a cliche that almost made me throw up when I said it, but it's true. Everyone tells you to listen to your heart. What they never tell you is how scary that is if you do it right. It takes actual, real courage to admit what brings your heart joy. It takes even more courage to listen in silence to the suffering of your own heart and to your own pain. Do that anyway, right? Get good at it. It's hard and it takes practice, but practice that. And while you're at it, learn to listen to other people. Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers to you, who is someone that I have come to realize was just a total badass, said that listening is one of the greatest gifts a person can give another person. And I love that, because it's so easy, isn't it, to think of listening as receiving information. But when you're doing it right, you're actually giving something. You're giving the gift of your own attention. And that's a huge thing, because that's when empathy starts. And that's when compassion can begin. And that's actually a really useful life hack. Once you learn to listen to the joy and suffering of your own heart and begin to listen to it in the hearts of other people, you start to hear how much it's all very much the same. And honestly, people get way more interesting and even slightly less annoying when you realize how they're just like you. It's a good life hack. Another thing that Steve taught me, and this one is obvious, is to look for the clues, right? Obviously. The universe tends to deliver signs. Become a seeker. Look for them. Use your wonder, your joyful curiosity to become an active participant in a deep investigation of your own world. Listen deeply. Search carefully, because that's when you'll start to notice all the really good stuff, the moments, the flashes that light you up, the stuff that moves you and inspires you, the stuff that rings true and seems to rhyme and harmonize with your guts. Those are the moments that are guiding you toward your dream. Those are the moments that are guiding you toward a better picture of who you are. And when you find that stuff, write that stuff down, right? Get a notebook, get a journal, get a bunch of journals, write stuff down on receipts and flyers, make voice memos, because that stuff is fleeting, especially nowadays when the whole world is competing to steal your attention. That stuff will pop like bubbles and dissolve into dust, so it's really important to archive all of it. It's really easy, actually, to forget the name of the song that moved you and made you cry snot onto your sweater on Back River Road, you know? It was Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo, by the way. That song gets me every time. So yeah, write that stuff down. These moments probably seem small individually, but in aggregate, they represent your accumulated knowledge. They tell a story that will set you on a path toward greater understanding. Use that knowledge to think, think, think. I encourage you to try to lead a contemplative life. I'm not saying you've got to be a philosopher, but you got to make a practice of looking beyond the surface of things. Engage your mind in creative thought. Engage your mind in expressive thought. Think critically. Be skeptical, but don't believe everything you feel. Ground your skepticism in a framework of truth, in justice, of reality, in evidence. Use your passion and your reason together at the same time, because you really can't go anywhere unless you have both of them. You're kind of like a boat, right? Fill your sail with passion and wonder, and let your rudder be your guide. If you're all sail, you just go around in circles. If you're all rudder, you don't go anywhere at all. But if you're able to move forward, your passion and your reason may lead you to wisdom. And wisdom is important. You will need it when life gets heavy. And life will get heavy. The struggle is not optional. I don't care who you are or what you do. Everyone struggles. It's actually part of being an alive human being on planet Earth. The good news is you will eventually recognize the struggle as a necessary part of having a beautiful and meaningful life, and that your pain was always your best teacher, every time. But life will get heavy. It's possible that it will even get too heavy to carry. I know this because this happened to me. Many people don't know, but the entire time I was on Blue's Clues, I was struggling with undiagnosed severe clinical depression. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that it was sometimes very hard to work. I mean, you can imagine my job was to be the happiest man in North America, and I didn't always feel that way. Now, I knew I had a really good thing going, right? So I fought it. For years, I fought it and fought it and fought it. But it turns out you don't fight depression, you collect it. Which is what I was doing. So I collected more and more and more, and it got heavier and heavier and heavier and darker and darker and darker until it got pretty scary. And that is when I remembered to do what Steve did in each and every episode. I stood in front of someone, looked him in the eye, and I asked, "Will you help me?" And that was the greatest lesson that I learned from Steve. It is so totally okay to ask for help. If you are someone who feels that life has gotten too heavy to carry now or even in the future, know that I and countless others totally get it. You're not alone. Talk to somebody. Ask for help. It has nothing to do with weakness. It is actually a confrontational and courageous act of strength. It was actually the most transformational act of my entire life and taught me a whole bunch of stuff. I learned to reject the assumption that our lives are not full until our dream is realized, until our dream is in our hands, and that our lives are not good unless they are happy all of the time. I believe that there is so much more to life than happiness. Life is just so much more complex and beautiful than that. But here's a side note, real quick. If happiness is what you want, if that's what you're after, get over yourself. Make your life about other people. Be in service to and of others, and your heart will gladden. Surefire life hack. Works every single time. I've also learned that when too narrowly defined, our dreams can become hindrances. If I had allowed my dream to narrowly define my life and choices, I never would have gone to that audition. I wouldn't be here in these beautiful hills in the rain on this spring morning talking to you. My life is actually a billion times more interesting than I ever dreamt it would be. So I encourage you to explore the dream adjacent in your life. There are wonderful opportunities to the left and right, to the north and south of your dream. I am a living, breathing example of that fact. And it is my wish that you may be too. Your life may not lead you to your dream, but your dream will lead you to your life. Thank you for taking this time to listen to a neighbor. And thank you for including me in this very important day. Now go forth, Broncos, into the wonderful unknown. I'm headed to Tractor Supply because I need socks.